What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot and Friends. Justin here, and how you feeling? The moon's in Sag, Jupiter's in Cancer. They're in mutual reception. The energy is beautiful. At least that's the imagery. But, we do have some things to talk about. This is a very interesting full moon. I think that there are, where there is, Big Papa's exalted, Venus is in Taurus, even the moon being in Sag is nice. But we still have, the moon's going to have a conversation both with Saturn. It starts with conversation with Saturn and ends with a conversation with Mars. So, the Malefic's got some things to say about this new growth that we're in. And we're going to get into all that here in a moment. But if you're new here, again, my name is Justin, and know that when you come across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and who doesn't love that? But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, maybe Jupiter, wherever this one's for you. Actually have a couple people with Jupiter in Cancer that I've been talking to. I'm like, let's get Jupiter return is here. It's an exciting time, and wait a minute. Yes, wherever this was for you. But also, if you happen to have, if you just happen to have a moon placement, that moon placement will rule your Cancer placement. So it's good to sync up with the moon and know what's going on there, have a relationship with that. So this can be for anybody who wants to just get more in sync with what's going on with that light in the sky. Let's see if I can talk about it. I'm so in awe because I do tarot card spreads amongst other things based off that lovely luminary, the good old moon. You know what? I'm recording this one a little early, but if that full moon is out there outside, bet I'm taking the telescope out. It's gonna be on, and I'm gonna talk about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it's going void. Of course, just all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a 1-to-1. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope. Now, let's just jump into it. I'm excited. Because, yes, let's get into the lunar shenanigans. But depending on when you're watching this, happy moon day, and hopefully you all are feeling well. But depending on when you're watching this, the moon will have entered into Cancer, or into Cancer. Wouldn't that be something? I'm getting ahead of myself. Will have entered into Sagittarius on the 9th of June, and this is going to happen at about 7:56 a.m., and that's going to be Pacific time. And I'll get into the full moon here in a moment. But when you just think about the energy of Sagittarius, they're ruled by Big Papa, so there's already this expansiveness quality to them, a seeking. For me, they're the adventurers of the zodiac, whether that it be actually just out and about or just even just like in books or wherever, just creating something. Sagittarius is the mutable fire sign, and they're active or young in nature. So the energy, the will, that fire energy, that passion is always in motion, is always growing in Sagittarius. And I think that brings that enthusiasm, that optimism for what else is out there? What else can I experience? And in this case with the moon, what else can I feel? And I think that the one kind of trickiness with maybe the moon in Sagittarius is that there can be these big feelings sometimes, maybe even becoming overwhelmed with emotion, almost like fervent in a sense. Maybe the will is just like, because listen, I've been talking about this Jupiter for a minute. I'm happy that it's here. And I have in my chart, I have a pretty close relationship with Jupiter. But there is this thing where Jupiter can do things, and it can do it in a really big way. So I think that is something where, as we're getting settled into this new energy here, Jupiter's about to form a square with Saturn here soon. This is going to be where we get where that expansiveness meets a little bit of friction. And so meet some challenges. And because in this growth, I think that this energy is not going to just be where Jupiter's just bringing a bunch of good feelings. It could bring these feelings out in the form of maybe like a tough conversation where it's just like, maybe there's some emotions that you haven't dealt with within a certain relationship, and that comes out, and it could lead to these big responses if we don't have eyes on them. So that could be something, how this energy, I would just kind of monitor how the energies are moving through you. I'd be aware of any sort of like real big responses to things. It's one thing to be enthusiastic, and again, I think that's something that if you have any sort of like, and I think if you really have like Jupiter on a sensitive point, if you have any planets in Sag, you would understand. Even like planets in Pisces, since that's a traditional ruler or Jupiter's traditional ruler of Pisces, where, again, it's great to have that optimism, but you want to have a tempered optimism, because then that could, where you could have that big response, sometimes that could potentially lead to that maybe like a big letdown. And then, and that's where we're, and let's kind of talk about this sort of this new moon, or this new moon. I'm really ready for the new moon apparently, but let's talk about this full moon first, because that's going to happen on a Mercury day. That's the 11th of June, and that's going to happen a little bit after midnight at about 12:45 a.m. And again, that's Pacific time. And the full moon, I'm just going to go ahead and circle the midheaven too. The full moon is when you got the lovely moon here sitting mighty in Sag, is opposing the sun here, all smart and chatty here in Gemini. And oppositions are when two opposing forces are at odds. These are two sections of your chart that are trying to reconcile with one another. They're going to have their differences, obviously, but it's just like, how can we bring the best of both worlds together? I like to almost think of the opposition sometimes could be as about your expectation versus reality here. And so that may be something that we may be looking at. There may be where you're wanting to take your life a certain direction. You've been trying to do these changes, but that means that how's my environment going to respond to that? Does that support these changes that I want to do? How does my family feel about it? How does my boyfriend girlfriend relationship feel about it? How does my family feel about it? How my friends feel about it? How do I feel about it? With all these changes that are maybe potentially going on there. But the thing with this full moon, I think of the oppositions, I think the easiest one, I think the one that's easiest to reconcile is between Gemini and Sagittarius. And I was just talking with the Sag about this not too long ago. They're sisters of Gemini. And there's just something there. I think the glibness of Sag the glibness of Gemini and the bluntness of Sag, it's like their energies are, someone's going to say it eventually. And I think that it's something where they understand enough where it's just like, it's not meant to harm. It's just like, let's just get this out the way, hash this thing out and be done with it. The mutable energies, they want to keep the energies light, and I think that this full moon here, where even if you're coming across a bit of opposition, it's just like, okay, this is where, I started this thing out in Gemini. I had this thought. I was curious about this thing, but now I'm really seeing the full picture here with Sagittarius. And that's perfect for Gemini and Sagittarius, because Gemini is more kind of detail-oriented, where Sag is about the big picture. So this could just be, let this be, even if something didn't go as you wanted, instead of maybe if you normally would react with like a big response, maybe super frustrated, like, why can't this go my way? It's just like, well, you know what? All right, that was a lesson. I got this. Like, I did this thing, and this is the result that I got. Okay, so maybe if I were to just shift this, I make these minor tweaks here and do this will keep me getting to this bigger picture here on the line. But those are just some things that I think this moon can think about. And like I was saying, there's going to be growth these over this next year. Every time that we have these like lunations in Cancer and in Sag and even in Pisces, the moon and Jupiter are going to be in this mutual reception. So that's going to be at least 3 times a month that they're going to have these really nice, these really nice connections with one another. So I think that this is one where really pay attention to monitor these lunations, understand your relationships with the moon, how you feel about these different topics and things, and notice the cycle and get into the rhythm here, because this really can be a very expansive year for us all. But just in general here, just the journey of the moon, it starts off with a trine with Saturn, and where trines again are very harmonious aspect. The thing though is that this one is happening with Saturn, which is the greater malefic, and so we could be feeling this expansiveness, but again, other people are feeling it too, and it may not be as harmonious in their charts as it may be in yours. And so maybe we're feeling this tension here where it's just like, okay, how do I keep the flow, knowing that not everyone's going to be having the same sort of view that I'm going to have? How do I keep holding that image, even though people may be, you may come with someone with an idea and they're just like, oh, there's no way you're going to be able to do that. There's such and such going on. There's such and such going on. But that trine energy could, I think if used constructively, could be something where it's like, you know what, I'll show you. And we put in the work. We understand like this may be something that I may have to grind at, but that's fine. And then The next aspect that the moon forms again is that full moon, which we just talked about there. We've kind of got a grasp of what direction we're going to take, and then it ends off with a trine with Mars, and this could be where again we could either let this energy lead us to big frustrations, kind of letdowns, because again where I like where Jupiter is in Cancer, how things may get brought up, because once Saturn really settles into Cancer, or excuse me, into Aries next year, they're going to be at this tension point for the rest of the time. But before that, I think that this can be a time to begin to see what emotions do come up, how you are feeling through these things. And I think the more that we learn to move through those feelings and learn how to ride those waves, it's like surfing. The more you may kind of crash at first, there may be a bit of what do they call a wipeout, but then you just get back on it again. You learn from that, and then you keep growing with this. And so that's where I think where the moon kind of ending off with Mars, there may be some challenges. It may be a little frustrating here, but it's like, okay, you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And with Mars and Leo, I like Mars and Leo. This is really kind of keeping the energy going, keeping the hope alive there. So, but one other thing that I want to kind of talk about here, and I'll switch over here for a moment, is that I want to talk about the Sabian symbols for the sun and the moon for this energy. But let's talk about the moon first, because it's phase 261 of Sagittarius, in which this one is really nice, and I kind of like the image of this one. It talks about a child and a dog wearing borrowed glasses, and what an image that is. But the keynote for this is the use of imagination and make-believe in anticipating higher stages of development. So that moon is thinking big. Like this can really, I think, wherever you have Cancer in your chart, wherever Jupiter is coming through, this is where Jupiter is exalted. And that's a big deal when the greater benefic is on one, on one in the best possible way. Jupiter is bringing this energy of compassion and nurturing and mercy and just good vibes that's coming through here. And it's just like, where do you see yourself growing? How do you want to, because imagine Jupiter's just bringing you this life water, and it's just like, how much can you hold of that? Jupiter's wanting to expand the vessel and wanting you to anticipate higher stages of development, because we are going through it and will continue to go through these advancements through life. So it's just like, instead of just being pulled along by the tide and just being just kind of forced into growth, it's like, let's just start getting better at riding the wave, anticipating what's to come. And this is going to be the thing. This is going to, maybe this inspiration is going to come for different people at different times. This is not one, I would say, just because, let's say, if you're feeling in a place of inspiration again and enlightenment and whatnot, your neighbor may not be feeling that, the people at work may not be feeling that, and this would be a time where it's like we're not forcing our things on them, but we're also not letting other people's emotions and impact to dissuade you from doing your goals here. Because I say that because of where the degrees of the sun at. It's phase 81 of Gemini, and it speaks of a tumultuous labor demonstration. And the keynote for this is the revolutionary impact of mental concepts upon the collective emotions and desires of man. And you know what can maybe potentially happen, because it happens. It's an emotion. Some people feel, you may be doing all these things may be moving ahead, and maybe there are those who are celebrating you, but maybe there might be this envy, this jealousy of like, why aren't things moving along for me? Oh, it must be nice that life is going great for you. Meanwhile, over here in Sucksville, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I would say, be mindful of how you're growing over this period of time, seeing where maybe even people, situations may move you. But I also think too, I think this is a great time to take hold of our imagination and really think about what we're putting into view and how energies impress upon us. Because the thing with Jupiter and Cancer too is that we are going to be more receptive to the energies. And Cancer is a cardinal sign. It's an initiator. So you want to pay attention to how things move you, and to be collective energies are very powerful, and I think when there are situations that are kind of forced upon us, and whatever that's looking like, this could be from the media, this could be from wherever, your neighborhood, family, but wherever things are impressed upon us and they are, when we're just kind of riled up into a frenzy, that's just something I think we want to keep eyes on there as well. I think that that's why this is a very interesting full moon. I think this can be a very liberating one when we realize how much control we really have in this thing. And it really starts with the feeling. So just some stuff there to think about. But let's go ahead and get into the tarot here. But a couple of things to consider. These readings that I do, they're not gender-specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. Now, I'm going to pull 6 cards here, and we're just going to pull some general energy here, see what kind of comes out. But I've got the I-Ching here for your advice, and you got one changing line here, which was changing line 6. So we're going to get a clarifier for card 6 as we go along through this thing. But let's go ahead and just get an oracle card here, see what the energy, the general energy is. Get the framework for this thing. Ooh, that's what's good. That's basically what I was talking about. So you have the Panther Spirit here. I love that. Panther Spirit, which is reclaim your power. And that's basically what I was was saying. Like, I think especially with how, think about how music moves you, how cinema moves you, how stories move you. And it's one thing if something is inspiring, but if it's another thing that is just like keeping you down, and this doesn't just have to be in the stuff you're listening to, this could be the conversations that you're having. This is an energy of reclaiming your autonomy. That's what I think this moon and Sag is giving, venturing to, imagining something bigger for yourself. What does you and your power look like? Think big. With the moon and Sag. Who was it? Neil Armstrong, guy who went to the moon? It's got moon and Sag. So this is really think as big as you possibly can. This is a time where if you've been, I think with this full moon, if you realize that, there's so much more that I want to do, like that, that you want to achieve, absolutely. The only one that's stopping you is you. And that's the thing where there's always going to be circumstances, there's always going to be situations, there's, is there how much time, where's the time, where do I work this thing in? It's like we can sit there and work on all the ways that it can't, maybe come to fruition. And that would be Saturn in Aries dampening this Jupiter in Cancer. That's why I say it's like coming with like a tempered enthusiasm. It's saying that you can anticipate higher stages of development, but in that requires a higher stage of participation and, different knowledge, different skills, tapping into exploring different parts of yourself. So yeah, this would be, I think, a great lunation if you even notice where you're like, you want life to feel fuller. Like, my gosh, what a time to be alive. Like, what do I want to do with this this life force energy? That's Sag. That's moving the stuff there. That's why I love fire energy for that. It really it motivates you in a way that can, it helps you and it helps those around you, and it spreads. It becomes less of a wildfire and more of a bonfire. Because I think when the energies are stifled, that's when it's a wildfire. And then we're just reactive and it's poof, 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 poof. So, yeah. all that. But let's go ahead and get some tarot on this. Start pulling this energy here. I really like that Panther Spirit. Nice. Absolutely. You got the 9 of Discs here. And this is a great time for you to really work on yourself. Refine a skill in you. This is the Lord of Gain. What do you have to gain from being in your exalted state? Wherever this is one of those times where, because Saturn it's an interesting combination where we're in. Jupiter is going to be exalted for the year, and Saturn's going to be in its fall for 2 years, and two and a half roughly. And I think that this first one here, especially when Saturn officially settles in around like January, I think is when it moves back into Aries. But by then we should have a feel for what this Jupiter and Cancer can bring, what we can really do. And then Saturn and Aries can help us again refine that energy. And that's what the Nine of Disc is. It's really making your resources work for you. This is a high energy of discernment. What is affecting my abundance? What am I attracting that needs to just be cut out? Really kind of reflect on that. What does abundance mean to me? That's something too. I think with this reclaim your power, I think that there's you have to have like all this money, all these things, all these people, and all those whatevers. And where I'm not poo-pooing on any of those. That's not everyone's story though. There's some people who have more second house focus, where they're thinking about possessions and money. There are other people who are more relationship focused. There are more people who are spiritually focused. There are people who are health focused. So it's a really kind of understanding what your energy is. And you know what? While we're kind of in the middle of this, I think it's a nice kind of little insert here. If you want to get to know your chart a little bit better, kind of ease into those energies and really kind of explore you in a different way. One of the things where I've always been pretty charismatic and things, but when I saw how lit up my first house is, especially where Jupiter's at, I'm like, oh, I need to lean all up in that. I need to take up all the space. So if that's something that you want to explore your chart, or really see, what house is Jupiter lighting up for you? What house is Saturn ask you to get some discipline on? That's something where down in the description box there is my email address to get in touch with me if you have any questions, but prices for my services and how to set that stuff up there. So definitely check that out if that resonates with you. But let's get back into the tarot. Nice. Absolutely. Look at all this earth. And this is the earthiest court card here. You got the Princess of Disc here. And this is you. This is you worked on this thing, you've reclaimed your power, and now things are coming to fruition. It's not just a feeling anymore. It's not just something it's not just make-believe. This is real. This could be you going for that promotion. This could be you investing in that car. This could be you booking that trip, you joining that group, you doing that creative endeavor, maybe having that child. The Princess of Disc, she's just full of life. She's about to take all her power here and she's pouring it into this forest, and this grove is going to become a verdure, just an evergreen forest that she's getting ready to, just a bunch of life, and then that's going to attract a bunch of things to that as well. Life, when it's we're in a really, really potent energy, I feel like, and I think that this is one of those really kind of nice times where really you want to lean into that, and when things are of ease. I think when Cancer is going to be where Jupiter and Cancer is going to be the push to get into the familiar, work into this thing. And then I think when Jupiter moves into Leo, that's when things are really going to start cooking, because then Saturn and Jupiter will be trying one another then. It'll be a different conversation that they're having in this with fire energy here. So what a perfect time to really start showing up in the world, really showing up as who you are and whatever that means for you. You know what I mean? Big news. Big news are coming with that Princess of Disc. Let's get some more on this. Speaking of Saturn, you got the Universe card here, which is the world, and that's Saturn energy. That's Saturn, that's, again, Earth energy. What's your universe look like? You are a unique snapshot of the universe. This is why I love looking at the astrology. Every time I look at a chart, it's cool to see what the sky has translated onto the earth. That's what I think this world is giving. You got something big to cook up here. So what is it? Let us all be, Spirit's got an eye on you. But I think it's like the supportive eye, of course. It's like, what is that sustaining force? I'm looking at the 4 fixed signs here. That's the, the 4 fixed. I know that's Taurus, that's Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. and thinking about the perseverance, the stamina that it takes for this stuff here, because the energies are changing. Again, there's something's cooking up here, and I think this is the sign. This is the great work, that the universe is bringing here, and I think that there's even this looking back at where maybe you felt like the world was maybe even against you or something like that. There could be even some bigger things that we may be challenging here. And I think that if you're thinking about some bigger, life endeavors, whatever that might mean, I think that is knowing that you don't have to take it by yourself. I think that there could be maybe a group that can help to, support some kind of common cause there. Just because maybe maybe you want your friends and people to believe in your cause. Maybe they're not on board, but it's like finding other people who are, and that's fine that we have these different things that we want to do. Not everyone's meant to do the same thing, like I was saying earlier there. So, I think it's time to bring the energies wanting you to bring your unique perspective into view there. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it cooking. Nice. Jeez. So you got the Knight of Disc here, which is the King of Disc. So this is, again, the Earth is really settling. This is fertile ground, and that's very interesting. That how this is, I think, coming up here. I'm getting like being resourceful, of course, with the Knight of Disc, and this is work. This is patient work. The Knight of Disc here, he's got this whole field that he's tended to, but his horse is grounded in his work. His work is a part of him. It's connected, and he's beaming. Look at the shield, just radiating light off of himself, because that's what this Panther spirit reminds me of, like when Leo energy's in its once it's in its energy, when it's like really got something to focus on. I mean, it just like it radiates in a way. And this could be looking for, you might be this princess here who's just kind of fresh at this energy, and you may need to find a mentor maybe to help you kind of move this thing along, to help make this materialize. That might be something that's coming on there too. Someone with some experience, some wisdom. Let's get another one on this. Jeez. So you got the Three of Disc here, which is literally the Lord of Works. And this is work, though. This is your hard work put on display, though. This is not just like like Eight of Disc sort of energy. This is the work that's meant to be seen, and this is like, as you're refining this is collaborative energy. Once you've got this thing grounded, then maybe get some perspectives, but get it started first with this Nine of Disc here. Have yourself be really settled in, almost immovable, like the Knight of Disc here. Be open to critique, but keep the dream solid. Keep the vision. That's what this is giving me here. This is Mars and Capricorn. This is exalted energy here with this card. But you may start off, again, out of your comfort zone. This one, while we're talking about these planetary energies, this is Venus in Virgo, and Venus is in its detriment in Virgo. Or excuse me, no, Venus is in its fall in Virgo. This is where, again, where we may be at the beginning stage of this. We're trying to, as we're reclaiming this power, we're doing this work. Of course, we may make mistakes along the way, maybe whatever this might look like. But again, as we work on it, we'll refine it, and then it'll get to this place of where you're ready to branch out, is what this is giving me here. But I think I would said this on the universe there, that you're not in this alone, especially whatever endeavor that you're doing this on. There may be some solo work there with the Nine of Disc, but I think it's a balance. There'll be some solo work done that you're bringing to the group that's going to help further this project, and then we all got to go back and then do maybe a little bit more work, and then it's kind of contributing as the world is forming. So I'm with it. Let's get your last card here. All right, we got a little fire in the mix, which I love that. You got the Queen of Wands here. And that's Queen of Wands is fire. Yeah, she's fiery. She's following her desires. She goes where the sun goes. I'm thinking in the Rider Waite, she has sunflowers planted at her throne because they're always facing where the sun is. And the Queen of Wands is daring. She's bold. She goes out and gets what she wants. You know, she's not just a she's a dreamer and she's an achiever. You know, that's something I think with this Queen of Wands here is not just about its emotions and action. You know, that's what I think that this energy is giving there because you know with this Queen of Wands here, a taming of the energy, how she's got her hand on this cheetah here, learning how to really. It's not a control, it's a working with, you know, working with what you know, with your skills here, whatever this 9 of disc thing that you may be refining there, whatever downloads that you're receiving, whatever ideas. Again, pay attention to what comes up for you during this period of time here. But let's get a clarifier for the Queen of Wands. I'm with it. So the Queen of Wands is clarified by the Four of Wands here, and this is a celebration. This could be reaching that milestone. You know, this could be where, you know, maybe you find that relationship that you're looking for. Maybe you find that whatever that thing is that you're seeking after, that you're wanting to see materialize. I think the more that you're going towards that finish line, the more there be just a celebration. Again, it's not to say that there aren't going to be challenges along the way. The 3 of Discs, it's gonna be work. Saturn's here. It's gonna be work, but it's not just gonna be pointless work with Saturn. It's work that's going to last, hopefully outlast you. You know, that's the kind of work that Saturn brings. It's that work that affects generations. You know, that's the kind of things, you know, that sort of everlasting abundance. You know, that's where it's a little bit different than Jupiter, what Saturn brings. But yeah, this to me is going after what you know, what makes you feel abundance. And I think that goes back to what that question, you know, what does abundance mean for you? What would have you feeling, not just even abundant, but fulfilled? What would have you feeling powerful, but not in a domineering way where you're wanting to control others, but more so just like I'm just doing me and I'm doing me well. You know, that's what this reading is giving me here. This is dope. I'm with that. I hope you're all feeling that. But let's go ahead and get some advice from the I-Ching here, which that's gonna be hard to follow. But you know what? I do like this. I do kind of like this energy relating to this. So you got hexagram 20 here, which is view. Now, just a little sidebar. The site that I get the kanji from have a different kanji, and it's even a slightly different translation than this one. In this book, it's view. On that site, it's observing, which I mean is a form of viewing. Our eyes are open. But that's just something where if that's just something you just happen to notice, that's what that's about. Because I looked for everywhere on this kanji, but I'm had to get creative on that one. But you got changing line 6 here, and let's talk about that. Because and this is hexagram wind over earth here. And you know what? There's something. Speaking of all this earth, there is, I think, the wind. I just picture the wind almost like caressing the earth, caressing the grass, almost going back to that hay in the Night of Disc. There's energies coming from up high that are wanting to materialize. So yeah, just pay attention to that. But like line 6 talks about viewing others' lives, a gentleman should be faultless. And what for me this when we're looking at others, I think we can think sometimes like why don't you do this with yourself, or why aren't you doing this with yourself, and why aren't you doing that, and you could be doing this. And where I think what I think this hexagram is kind of challenging here is what you're seeing others is like, okay, how am I doing that? How am I being an example of that, so that they know? Because maybe they don't know what that looks like. Maybe they're needing someone to show them what that looks like. So when you're thinking like, oh, why can't such and such do better? What am I doing to do better? So that way you live faultless, so that others have something to base their imagination on. Because maybe all they've seen thus far is other people's kind of projections, like, why can't you? And that's all that there is. And maybe even look at where that may even resonate for you, and how you've let others people's, worry about what other people's opinions are of you. Like, unless we're, receiving some kind of like positive critiques, of course, obviously. But, I think as long as you're living faultless, and how you're, in letting, because there's something powerful in that. I'm not quite sure how to explain it. Let me go ahead and switch over. But where if we ever get into a place of like judgment, it was just like, you know what? Yeah, again, where can I do that for myself? Where can I be better in that energy? So, how am I walking in that? How am I showing up for them, so that they can think like, oh, you know what? I like the way they're presenting their energy. I want to do this thing, and kind of spur up again that, help be that example, that be that inspiration, I think is really what this is trying to bring up here. But it's all a matter of a point of view here. I think that really kind of helps there. And I think that Jupiter in Cancer really can help can create that empathy, that compassion. It really kind of helps see others from others. You kind of really feel what they're going through, because maybe there's some things in there. Maybe got a lot of harsh things in their charting, whatever that might look like. But yeah, whew, that's all I got for you there. So that was a dope reading. And if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this if you know somebody who can get some nuggets of wisdom from this, and hopefully everybody. And subscribe there, you universe. Hit that bell button to get notified when I have these videos each day. And then, like I was saying, if you want to book a reading with me, if you want to get it, or book more so a consultation with me, as far as like whether you want to see what sort of like auspicious times are coming up for you, see what maybe kind of perfection year you are, or maybe what are some hot spots that you want to look out for. Or if you just want to get to know your natal chart a little in more depth, how to work with your energies, maybe explore a side that you hadn't explored before. Down in the description box, there is a link for all the prices for my services, and also my email. So if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out. And then if you want to go check out what's happening in just the weekly news, I have on my other channel, Alchemist 8, I talk about what's going on with the sun and the other planets, and what signs they're in, and how to bring that information down to home, how to bring that, what's going on to the sky, and how to put that into practical application, and if you have certain placements, how this may be activating in your chart. So, because that can be very interesting, where, it's like sometimes there be this Jupiter in Cancer for me is really not activating a lot of points, my midheaven and my sun, basically. And so it's just going to be pretty much, Jupiter's going to do some work, but it's just going to be more quiet work. And so you can see where maybe this is more people talking big energies, but you're just like, I'm napping. So you can get better eyes on that. And then also, I have this series that I'm doing right now of different celestial bodies and different zodiac signs and different houses, and my thoughts on those combinations. And so there's just some things to kind of look for when you're going to first maybe look at a chart. So just again, my thoughts on it. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes on that moon. Go out there and see that full moon if you're able to see it. I think that there can be, I'm putting out there clear skies. Clear skies, Seattle. And I will catch you. Oh, when am I going to catch you? I didn't put the next one. You know what? Let's pause for a second. On the next one. I know, silly. Mercury Day.